WNST, not only in case something happens to my roof, but you need therapy when the Ravens are 4-5. Bill Cole from Cole Roofing is here to provide that for us, but I don't know. I am sort of the therapy around here for other people, but I don't know that I'm much therapy this week to say that I really think this team's going to turn this thing around and go to the playoffs. I don't believe that right now, Bill, and I'm not sure anybody in the audience does.
No, we're too short-sighted to believe things like that. I think that with a 8-8 team, you have weeks where you think you're really good, and you have weeks where you think you're really bad, and you get to the end and you're 8-8, and maybe you sneak in and you lose in the first round, maybe you don't, but that's where I think we are. I think there's too many holes. I don't know. Maybe you can help me understand the defense.
Oh, I've been trying to help other people. They're trying to help me understand it. I think John Harbaugh's trying to understand it at this point. Literally on both sides of the ball. I mean, Bill, I say this often, and I know you have this emotion. I left my wife in the fourth quarter of the Saints game to come downstairs. They had a 10-point lead, and they were going to be 5-2. Now you look up 2 weeks later, Pittsburgh's kicked your ass, and it feels like your season's over.
I think the bye is helpful, right? You probably couldn't ask for a better time to take a break. I think maybe we played our hand a little early. Like I feel like we were really creative in September, and that maybe that was all the stuff we could come up with during the off season, and we kind of already used it all, and there hasn't been much since. I think the rookie tight end with Hurst, right?
Sure.
He is taking time from other guys who were showing to be productive, and I think he's still trying to, understand and get used to the NFL, and probably came back a little early from his injury, and now the speed's way faster, and so I think that's hurt us.
Well, that's a hell of an observation, because I don't think there's any doubt that we haven't noticed him, as much as we've noticed the offense in general. I mean, we noticed open receivers early in the season. The one thing I'll tell you we noticed is Joe Flacco comes off the field at the 20-yard line and stands over like a Canadian goose over on the left side, and they play 10 on 11. And then when he's in there, Lamar Jackson's the fifth option whom he doesn't see wide open on a play that would have gotten you 7 points and given you a chance to win the game. So I think the offense is fractured for what it is, because this isn't what Joe is used to running. It's not what Lamar is used to running. It's not what the team is used to running. And, oh, by the way, now you're putting different tackles out there to run around who weren't there 5-6 weeks ago when the offensive line was a structure that we actually talked about running the football. I don't even know we're talking about running the football anymore. I mean, I don't know that we're seriously going to be handing the ball to Alex Collins 22 times any week here.
Yeah, which strikes me as odd that we traded for a running back. I guess it's kind of a throwaway anyway, like who cares, but it was still weird. I didn't think Collins or Buck Allen were the problem. The offensive line is probably more of the problem than we can always understand, because we're not in the meetings and we don't see it. We clearly had maybe just a complete lack of depth at the offensive line, and the minutes one guy goes down, the whole thing falls apart.
Well, when you lose your right tackle, you then lose your backup left tackle, right? So then Jermaine Illuminor plays, and look, all you had to do was look at the way they played offense on Sunday, and maybe to your eye, this would clear some of that up. They had to play max protect on every play, and Joe had no chance to go into a Joe drop. 5-7 step, see a progression, have some time, step up, find John Brown. There's no time to do that, and they knew that going in against this defense with the Steelers. They knew they were going to have to do things differently, and what they did on Sunday wasn't good enough to adjust to that. And part of the adjustment to that is, let's put the ball in Lamar's hands because nobody can catch him. And that, to me, was the game plan on Sunday against the Steelers. And I don't want to say it backfired. It just didn't work.
Yeah, I'm going to give – this is totally, wearing my purple glasses, but I'm going to give Joe a pass on not looking at Lamar on the touchdown, because I think in practice, every time they ran that play, somebody guarded him and he didn't run real hard, because he's kind of just a decoy at that point. And I don't think they realized that nobody was going to cover him and that he was going to be wide open. And for all we know, maybe the guy totally can't catch. I would find that hard to believe. He seems like a great athlete that can probably do everything. But
I bet Joe Flacco could catch if you threw him the ball. I mean, these are pretty good athletes.
Coming.
Yeah,
I mean, that's coming. That play is in the book. It is inconceivable that you think you can consistently win 10 on 11, right? So you're only winning because of misdirection or confusion. Eventually, people have the tape. You don't win 10 on 11 anymore. So the only reason Joe's standing out there is because there's a play where they throw the ball to him. I mean, there has to be. Otherwise, why doesn't he come off the field like all these other teams do when they have a different package for a different quarterback?
Well, we saw the Saints run it 2 weeks ago very, very effectively. And look, Bill, this is a new thing for a football fan like you, a football fan like me. I remember a few years ago when the Dolphins were running that Wildcat. Remember that? Everybody made fun of that and said, that's a gimmick, that's a gimmick. And now all of a sudden, it's not a gimmick when I see 5 different teams running hybrids of it and everyone trying to do it well. And right now, the Saints are doing it well. The Ravens are not doing it well. And maybe part of that's Ronnie Stanley. Maybe part of that is putting a young tight end out there. Maybe the part of that is we do have a quarterback that's not very mobile at this point and doesn't want to be mobile at this point. And quite frankly, the whole notion of pulling him off the field after they move the ball 60 yards, just let him go quarterback the Dolphins next year or whatever. Because, I mean, and I'm going to be an ass about that all the rest of the year because that's like, that's where this is headed, right? This is headed right now for Eric DeCosta probably, because I think he's a guy of his word and Steve's a guy of his word, and this was the plan. I don't think this is a James Franklin thing where on January 9th, Steve decides to blow all of it up. That I don't want Eric either. I'm just going to get rid of everybody. But this would be his chance to do that if he wanted to do that and say, well, Eric wasn't drafting guys and whatever. But I don't think that's going to happen. So it's going to be DeCosta running the place. And now he's going to have a new head coach. He's going to have a decent draft pick. I don't know. I mean, it might be 18, it might be 22, it might be 12, depending on how bad they are, the next 8 weeks. And he does not have a quarterback. I don't think there's any point here, and they're going to give the ball to Lamar. If they lose another 1 or 2, Lamar's going to be the quarterback against Tampa. He'll be the quarterback when I get out to San Diego for Christmas week, right? He'll definitely be the quarterback against Cleveland for that game that all of 11,000 people will show up for, right? Literally, if that's what it is. If it's the Ravens are 6-9 or whatever, or 7-8, whatever it'll be at that point, no one will be there. And they'll have Lamar run around. And he'll do some good things. He'll do some bad things. He'll run like a gazelle. He'll throw a touchdown pass. He'll throw a couple of picks. And you'll have nothing. And you'll go into January and you'll say, well, Joe's going to go play for Detroit or Miami or, I don't know, name some godforsaken place, not Buffalo. And he's going to go quarterback somewhere else. And Lamar Jackson next year. And how's that offseason going to look? That offseason's going to look like 6-10 next year, no matter what they put around Lamar Jackson, because I don't think Lamar Jackson can win 12 games, because if Lamar Jackson could win 12 games, he'd be doing it right now, and they would have already put Joe on the docks, because they did that the day they drafted him, right?
Yeah, I'm almost curious as to which path you would prefer as a fan. So if
I don't think it's almost like voting on Tuesday, right? Like I don't know that there's any perfect choice here. Don't let the good get in the way of the great. Someone has to be the quarterback, and this week or next week, that someone will be Joe Flacco, right? I mean, that's literally it.
No, I guess I'm saying if we go out and we just tank, right? We consistently get worse. We go down the path that you just talked about. Joe's done.
Tanking would mean you're throwing in the towel. I don't think they're going to tank until they're in the tank.
No throwing of the towel, but clearly, we lose 3 straight coming out of the bye. We're done, right? It's done. John's going to lose his job. Joe's going to go. There's a turnover. It's DeCosta's team, and we're moving down. We got some young, nice spots that we're going to build around, and Yeah, and
well,
nobody's
unless they
gonna
beat
come
Cincinnati
in.
next week, I don't know that. I still think they have the win one in the Gipper, and I think they were 4-5 this time last year. They got back in it. They came a fingertip away because they played a lot of bad teams. They played a lot of bad quarterbacks, and they got better. Joe was better in the second half of last year, which we talked about for 8 months until this year started. I don't see that version of Joe right this minute, but I don't see things being perfect within the framework of the offense right now.
Well, look, there is a good chance. That's why I said the bye is so perfectly timed. I mean, there's a good chance we come out of this and we get right and we go win 3 in a row. I'm just saying, if we fall apart and we're kind of done early, and it's very clear, that lets us set a path for next year. If you go out and you win 2, lose 2, win 2, and you end up either making the playoffs and losing in the first round, or you lose the last playoff spot on a tiebreaker of some kind, then all of a sudden there's like confusion, right? So do we hang on to John one more year? Well, I think John goes almost under no. Well, I guess if he makes the playoffs, that's a tougher call.
Well, if you get to the point where beating Tampa, beating San Diego and beating Cleveland gets you in, like if you can survive to the point where you beat Tampa, and I mean survive against the rest of the standings, because I don't know that there's any boogeyman coming to get the 6th wild card spot, right? I don't know where Cincinnati's going to be at that point, Pittsburgh, San Diego, wherever they are. You have a chance to beat San Diego on your own merits Christmas week, so you can go in there and handle your own business. And then, you shouldn't be losing to Tampa, you shouldn't be losing to Oakland. So it's these other tweener games that you look at and say, yeah, we stink right now and we're 4-5, but could we get to a place where we could be 8-6? Could we get to a place to be 8-6? Could we win 3 of the next 4? Well, that starts with Cincinnati. That starts with Oakland. That starts with Atlanta. And then you figure Kansas City's going to be a rough afternoon, right?
Yeah, I just can't decide whether I'd rather limp in, not be real excited.
Well, John Harbaugh would rather limp in, and Joe Flacco would rather limp in, and Ozzie Newsome would rather limp in, and Eric Weddle and Terrell Suggs and Marshall Yanda.
Right.
So, don't think that they're not thinking about limping in. Don't think they're not thinking about being 5-5 next week. But I think the greater picture of the bye week is when guys like you and I get together, Bill Cole, is that we really are talking about all of this. And I'm not so pie in the sky to think this team can win a Super Bowl, because I'm with you. No matter where they limp or gimp, I mean, I guess if they win out, if they win 7 games in a row and they go to Kansas City and win, and they go out to L.A. and win, and Flacco's healthy and we got Ronnie Stanley back by the Atlanta game, and everything's cool, I could talk about them as winning 7 in a row and being a factor to win the Super Bowl. But if they do anything short of that, I would not think they're going to win the Super Bowl this year. And to your point, if they're not going to win the Super Bowl, then what are we doing?
Right. That's my bigger thing, is like we've been kind of putting Band-Aids on this thing for a long time since we won the last Super Bowl. And, a change needs to occur. You've got sort of a quarterback change and a coach change that are coming up. I just would hate to see us prolong that. And
a philosophical change to some degree. Like, I would think that Eric's going to do things differently with no Ozzie there. But other people have said, Ozzie's going to be hanging around being the spiritual godfather. And, and a lot of people say Steve really runs the place anyway, because when it comes down to it, Steve's in the room, you got to convince him you're going to take Lamar Jackson. Literally, he is a part of that. He is a part of the process, even though we don't talk about him. And this is exactly when you're 4-5 and doing roofs, and I'm 4-5 and selling radio and media, that you and we have our name on the door. We have to get involved, and Steve's involved right now. Don't think he's not, right?
Sure. You would think that DaCosta would lower the percentage of Alabama guys that are on our team, but the problem with that is if Alabama continues to put out the best pros all the time.
They look like they had 22 pros out on the field the other night in Baton Rouge. I'll take 3 of those guys, take my chances.
Sure. Right. Absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, the NFL is not like the other sports leagues. Mediocrity, kind of does get you pretty close to being involved, and then everybody has seen them catch lightning in a bottle.
Hey, both years we won the Super Bowl around here, we were pretty mediocre in November.
Right.
Pretty mediocre.
Yeah, so, I'm certainly not booking my trip to Atlanta or anything, but I haven't given up. I feel bad just because they had so much momentum and they seem to be much better. And like, I can't figure out the defense, like Jimmy Smith coming back seems to closely correlate with them not playing as well. But I don't know how that would even be possible from, putting our best cornerback on the field. So, I mean, Mosley went out for like a week or two where he was hurt. Weddle is your consistent rock back there. Suggs is sort of a part-time player, but that hasn't really changed. So you got some real beasts there. Like Judon is great. I don't know. I like at least
we haven't seen an emerging player though. Luke and I have talked about that. Where's our next Pro Bowler? Who's our next great player? Who's our next Marshall Yanda? Who's our next Terrell Suggs? Who's our next Joe Flacco? Who is going to be the next guy that we're going to have here for 10 years? And Brandon Williams is one of those guys because they've signed him up. At this point, C.J. Mosley's a question. I don't know that anybody's going to give Jimmy Smith a lot of money given his track record. I don't know that Marlon Humphrey has absolutely emerged as a guy the other offensive coordinator looks at and says, we got to steer clear of that Humphrey guy. Watch out for 29. I don't think the Ravens have that guy. And, bro, look, no one's got a bigger Purple Heart than me, right? But let's be honest. It's week 10. It's bye week. The kicker is still their best player, and he lost the game for him 3 weeks ago.
Right. Geez, thanks for the therapy. That really just put it all in perspective for me.
But it's the truth. I'm not being mean.
I can't argue with any of it. Sure.
I want Hayden Hurst to be their best player. I want Matt Judon to have 21 sacks, and and we have to give him $18 million a year or whatever. And I want Terrell Suggs to be 25. Bill Cole is our guy. He is Cole Roofing. It is all out there for you. And we had a little wet weather, and I think the wind does as much damage as the rain does. Tell me about what you do there, because it's only been 99 3/4 years that you've been doing it, right?
Right. So we're a old school Baltimore legacy company commercial roofer. So everything from, leaks that would have happened in the last 2 days with all the rain, and you just need a quick patch, or total roof replacements on everything from a shopping center, grocery store, to we do a lot of school work. I think the interesting part in that universe right now is people should be talking to their accountants, because the tax code changes allow different handling of roof work, and it could be advantageous, for people who have had, profitable years and maybe have been putting off trying to do something with that roof. They should get some advice and figure out whether now's the time to do it. So we're getting a fair amount of those kind of calls.
Building commercial roofing projects and our community for nearly 100 years. They're there. Cole Roofing. You can find them. All of the answers up at coleroofing.com, including green roofs, solar spaces, and other stuff like that feels very James Bond to me at this point. We talk about the Ravens at this critical juncture, and Luke gave me this great little, view of it on the radio especially. He's like, let's just view this in gray bars, all right? 11th year head coach who won a Super Bowl but won it 7 years ago, right? 6 years ago. 7 years ago now, right? We have an 11th year quarterback who's in his mid-30s, who's at the end of a contract and is immobile, and things are changing. We've drafted another quarterback. By the way, we have a 35-year-old right guard that might be going to the Hall of Fame, and a 36-year-old rush edge who's probably going to the Hall of Fame. You go through the list of the Eric Weddle. We have a 33-year-old safety who's, was pretty good in his day, probably not going to the Hall of Fame, but he's your team leader right now, and you're bleeding across the middle of the defense every week, every tight end, every running back, every mismatch. That's where this team is right now. So, you have to take the purple goggles off here and roll your sleeves up and say, this is going to be a tumultuous offseason no matter what, because I don't think there's any way Harbaugh or Flacco are going to survive this.
Yeah, I would agree.
And maybe not Yanda, Suggs, Weddle. It may, at this point, it may just be best to say, hey, look, everybody over 30, thanks but no thanks. And especially if Eric's going to rebuild it and not getting fired the next year or the next year, and a new coach is going to come in and won't be getting fired in 19 or 20 or 21, you would then have some semblance of fresh start, real fresh start. There was never a fresh start after the second Super Bowl because you can't fresh start when you have Ray Rice and Joe Flacco and Ed Reed and Ray Lewis. There was no fresh start after that Super Bowl. To your point, they've never rebooted this thing fully.
Which is the challenge if you don't go out and actually lose, right? If you're hanging around, then there will be people inside, the organization who are saying, well, we can squeeze one more out of Suggs, and Weddle's still a productive player, and all we need is a couple more pieces, and this guy will go away, and it'll give our young guys, one more year to develop, and we're there. And that's why I don't want us to be in limbo. I want it to be clearer that, and Joe, I don't think it's reasonable or healthy for a guy like Joe to sign a backup deal and just be our backup, because that would just be weird. But it would be interesting for him to be the backup because, they're always the most loved guy. So when Lamar's out there throwing 3 interceptions, everybody's going to be like, we want Flacco
Remember when Johnny came off the bench for moral back? Yeah, it'll be all that, right? Yeah.
And that would be amusing, and, I'd be happy for him to actually be the loved guy for once. But, I think change is coming. I definitely think here's the weird part on the head coach, right? So when they got rid of Billick, it was, hey, look, it's hard to just have these players hear the same message over a period of time, and after a while, the message gets stale, and we just need a change of pace. Well, with the exception of the guys you just named, John's message isn't stale to anybody, because most of the guys we have are different players that haven't been here for very long. So they weren't here. I mean, maybe there's 2 or 3, 4 guys who were on the team when we won the Super Bowl. So I don't think it's a stale message. I think it's a lack of players, really. I think it's a lack of focus on the offensive line, but I mean, we have creativity. I liked where the offense was. That seems to have gone away. And we really all liked the way we were playing defense, and that seems to have gone away. So, maybe the bye just comes at the right time. Seasons have ruts. There are challenges.
3 in a row and 4 out of 5. He is Bill Cole Roofing joining us here. Last thought for you on the offense with the Flacco and Lamar, because I didn't give you a chance to expound upon that, and what you're thinking when this happens and it doesn't work. I said that all year. It's fine to flank Flacco out, but let him walk back, after he doesn't touch the ball, then we've got to go kick a field goal. I don't know that that's fair to him, right?
Yeah, I'm not. Joe, I think, has handled it with grace, so we should be appreciative of that. I'm just afraid of.
But it's not graceful.
Well, that's true. We got to figure another word. But
it's true though. Yeah, he's handled something with grace that's not graceful.
Right. I am afraid of the Stoney Case years. Right. I just don't want to go back there. We have short memory on how this team struggled to have a quarterback who could handle himself well enough that when we played great defense, you could score 21 and that would be enough.
Well, we never stunk bad enough to get a quarterback. I mean, that's the truth, right? In those years, we were never bad enough to draft in the top 10. I guess never ballsy enough to trade up. And remember at that time, everyone wanted to get out of those spots because they had to go giving Sam Bradford real money, they had to give him $17 million a year like he was Tom Brady, even though he wasn't Tom Brady. And I remember Bisciotti railing about that even if I get a top pick, I get Joey Harrington and it sets my franchise back 4 more years because I have to take a quarterback if I'm up high. And the Ravens were never high enough to take a quarterback in those years.
Right. But there are guys, I don't know what the secret is. No one seems to have figured it out, but Fitzpatrick, he just keeps moving from team to team, and then, but clearly he's not sexy enough to be the starter.
Well, look, Case Keenum was sexy last year. He's not sexy this year.
And then Kirk Cousins, I don't know. You brought up Sam Bradford, right? I mean, there are these guys that move around. That they're not good. They're good. They're not good.
Jay Cutler's available, right? I mean,
it's hard to figure out. We won despite the quarterback the first time. I don't know that that's possible in the NFL anymore.
Well, and you could say that about Nick Foles, but then he went out and actually did it. He threw back shoulder passes to win the Super Bowl.
Sure.
Every pass he threw in January and February was perfect. So you can catch that, but you need to find that. Bill, I'm with you, man. I mean, it's quite a pretzel we have here at 4-5, and no game to watch this week. So we can just hate on the Steelers and hate on the Bengals and whatever. Watch some college football this weekend. I don't know. Take a powder after the election. Mow the lawn. I don't know. Something like that. But I need a week off. I'll tell you that. I need a Sunday without Ravens football, so I'm going to get it this week. Hey, man, we will send everyone out to find you at Cole Roofing, and I will be circling back with you next Wednesday. We'll do the Orioles next Wednesday. Hey, how about this? Will the Orioles have someone running the organization by the time you and I get together next Wednesday?
Yeah, no, but I do find it interesting that you're not the only person who is now sort of noticing that no one's running it over there.
Oh, really?
Like they're starting to percolate, like people are sort of noticing, wait, who is in charge?
There's no one flying the plane? What?
Right. Like, oh, that's weird. Maybe we should be talking about that.
Brady Anderson's up in the assistant pilot's seat. He's not flying the plane, but he's drinking some green juice.
Right.
We don't know, some fruit juice, some grass seed juice or something. Dude, I have no idea. I mean, the general managers meetings are this week, and they don't have one. The winter meetings are 3 weeks from now, and they don't have an organization. Everybody tells me Brady's running it anyway, so, I'll just take that at face value. Bill, we'll check in next week, talk some Oriole baseball, all right?
Appreciate you, man. Thanks so much.
And the Ravens can't lose this week. He is Bill Cole. He is one of our great sponsors, Cole Roofing. You can find them out online. If any of the roofing work you need is local, they're going to do it. They're going to do it better than anybody. Cole Roofing, they've been doing it 99 years. You can find this and every other piece we do out in the Buy a Toyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. I am Nestor. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. I am on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNS TV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.